Welcome to the Mac for the Blind Spring 2022 online courses. This is course number 3. This is all about Apple Mail and VoiceOver. My first thing I'm going to do is
Mail.
Command tab over to Mail. So Apple Mail, the first thing you need to understand, it is completely accessible with VoiceOver. There are no inaccessible areas to my knowledge, unless it's very, very, minor or something like that, vague. But you also got to understand that it is a full-blown mail client. There is I know this happens in iOS. There's a myth that if you're using Gmail or Outlook, you have to use the apps specific to those mail clients, and that's not true. Apple Mail will handle multiple clients simultaneously. You can set up Outlook, you can set up Gmail, you can set up obviously iCloud, Yahoo, your cable provider, your business. If you have a business website like I do, it's just a matter, in some cases, you may need to know specific details about your account. So in other words, when you go to add a mail account, and you do that actually in the easiest way to do that is in system preferences under internet accounts. You can do it through mail in mail preferences as well. But if you do it through mail preferences, it actually puts you in internet accounts anyway. So you choose your mail provider first. So if you're using Gmail, Outlook, whatever, you choose that provider, and then you fill in your details, your email address and your password. Now, in most instances, that's all you need to do. You go to the next button, mail will configure. You might get a screen that will have a table with check boxes that you check or uncheck for mail, calendars, contacts, notes, reminders. So you can choose which apps you want to have associated with that account. So Gmail, for example, and Yahoo or AOL, they will give you the options for adding, for having notes, calendars, contacts, etc. included. So once that's all configured, your mail will then sync up and you will be downloading, you'll have your mail downloaded on your Mac. Now, the only time it can get a little dicey in account creation is if you have a kind of an obscure or off the beaten path mail client. In that case, like when I set up my Mac for the Blind email, I also had to fill in my SMTP and POP server information. So you may need to know some extra pieces of information if you're setting up a mail account that's I guess the term that is used is quote unquote non-standard. So just keep that, particular instance in mind, but it's really not a big deal. The other recommendation I can make for you is use IMAP, which is basically, not that you really need to know it, but Internet Mail Access Protocol. It used to be years ago that people told you don't use IMAP and use POP. But these days, it's much better to use IMAP. The differentiation between IMAP and POP is that IMAP, you're accessing your provider's server. So you're actually accessing the mail on the server. POP downloads everything directly to your device. But you'll find that with Gmail and Outlook and other providers, you get a much smoother and more efficient experience in mail using IMAP. And I think it defaults pretty much for the most part when you go to set up mail to IMAP anyway. Now, once you have mail set up, I'm going to give it to you from the example of having multiple accounts. But if you don't have multiple accounts, you're only going to have one account, obviously, and thus one inbox, one sent, items folder, one drafts folder, one trash folder, etc. But if you have multiple accounts, as I do, your mail accounts are going to be sort of put into what's called the all inboxes or the all, unified inbox. And you actually have a unified inbox, a unified trash, unified sent, all those folders that kind of consolidate the mail from all of your clients. So it makes life, at least for me, easy, because this way it doesn't matter whether it's coming into my iCloud account, my John at Mac for the Blind account, my Gmail, whatever the case. I have 7 mail clients, and don't ask me. I mean, I can explain to you why I have 7, but let me put it this way. There is a reason why I have 7 mail accounts. So everything gets consolidated into my inbox, my all items inbox here. Now, when you open mail, you end up starting off in that unified inbox. So all you technically have to do is interact with with the message table.
Vertical split messages in messages table. John Panarese, test 12:56 p.m.
So I just interacted with my account, with my unified inbox. So I have a test message that I sent for myself just for the sake of demonstration here. But you can VO up and down.
Dr. VSK, Mac for the Blind, John Panarese, test, Barbara Curry. I guess we're going to have to check PayPal, debit card.
So I'm going down my message list right now. So I'm using the VO down arrow, VO up arrow.
Barbara Curry, John Panarese, test, 12:56.
The way, if you want to sort of visualize mail in its default layout, is there are technically 3, I guess you'd call it columns or areas of the screen. And it's kind of this typical Apple relationship they do with a lot of apps. So on the far side, you have your mailbox list. Now, I know some other providers call them folders. I've worked with some Windows people that get confused when you say mailbox and not folder, but they're kind of the same idea. It's just that in Apple world, they're called mailboxes and not folders. So you have all of your mailboxes based on what accounts you have. And I'll come back to the mailbox table a little later on here. The center area is the message list based on the mailbox that you have selected. So by default, it is the unified inbox. So thus the message table is the messages from the unified inbox. And it is a table, which is why it does require interaction. Now, some people are going to say, well, no, I can use the up and down arrow, and you can. I'm not denying that you can't use that. But in terms of consistency and to make things easier for yourself for other things I'm going to demonstrate, you want to make sure you're interacting with the message table so that things go smoothly. On the far side of the screen is the content of the message that you have selected from the message table. Some people will choose to hide this using the vertical splitter because they feel that when they go through the message table, VoiceOver automatically ends up marking messages as read, even if you don't read them. So that is an option you can, excuse me, an option that you can decide to take should you, be concerned about the status of your messages, whether they're read or unread. I personally don't care. So I have left the message content area visible to myself. So those are the 3 major areas. If you stop interacting, you also have a toolbar, you have a favorites bar, and this is where people can get lost.
Out of messages.
So
vertical splitter, mailboxes, favorites bar, toolbar.
So I'm just VO arrowing around here. And sometimes you can find yourself kind of stuck in the toolbar.
In toolbar, get mail, new message, archive button, delete button, junk button.
So you have these different buttons that sometimes confuse the snot out of people. So the thing is, just remember those 3 main content areas.
Out of toolbar.
And if you get stuck, Command and the number 1.
All inboxes, messages, table. John Panarese
will take you right back to your unified inbox message list table. Command and the number 1 from number row, because there is what's called the favorites bar. And again, we'll talk about the favorites bar and the mailboxes in a little bit here, but it's kind of your parachute or your saving grace, because it is easy to kind of find yourself getting lost sometimes in the mail app itself. And there's nothing wrong, as I tell my clients, there's nothing wrong with exploring. Sometimes it's kind of cool to sort of poke around and see what's available to you, find out where things kind of are. But as long as you know your three main areas of the screen and how to get back to your, to your message table, that's all that really matters. Now, as far as reading messages go, as you go through your
toolbar, message in messages, Barbara Curry, John Panarese, test 12:56 p.m. This is a test. Take care, John D. Panarese direct.
So you notice as you go through your messages, it's going to read the sort of a synopsis of the message. So it's going to tell you who the sender is, the date, the subject, and it's going to kind of start reading the message. Now, there is, to my knowledge, and I think it annoys Cliff as much as it annoys me, this bug where it will just read you most of your message. Theoretically, in mail preferences, they're under viewing. You're supposed to be able to control how many lines of a message that VoiceOver will read in the synopsis. You can set that to anything you like, regardless of that fact. As far as I'm aware, it does not obey that. So you do have to kind of be aware that it's going to start reading you most of the message. And
there's a way for it to work, but it's, if you put the vertical splitter, is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah, if you put the vertical splitter on 100%, it will not read you message. But the problem with that is it doesn't put nothing in the what is it called? The content area.
Yeah. Yes.
So if you want to actually read your message, you would have to hit enter or VO spacebar to open it up, because if you try to VO right arrow to where the content would normally be, it's going to it's not going to be there. Yeah. So
there's a trade-off. That's what I was talking about earlier about the vertical splitter and collapsing it. So, there's pros and cons to doing that. And that comes down to personal choice, whether you want to do that or not.
I'm glad you said that part, because when you were talking about the layout earlier, some people like the classic view, which I absolutely hate. I was so glad when this layout came out in whenever it was, line or later. But anyways, there's a setting under the view menu called column view, and it will put every column that there is known to man in mail, subject, time, date, from, whatever. It'll put them all in their own, each individual column. That's a personal preference, but like John said, if you want the most compact or simple layout, for lack of a better term, leave it like it is.
Right. And I'll show you right now what Cliff is talking about. So if you don't like the layout, you can go to the view menu.
Menu bar, Apple, Mail, File, Edit, View.
And under View.
View, Show tab, Show All tab, Customize touch box, Sort by, Filter, Use column layout.
Use column layout. If you check this.
Use column Favorites, toolbar.
There we go. It just got me, kicked me out
all
of my
inboxes,
mailbox.
Messages, in empty cell, column, empty cell, out, toolbar. Favorites bar group, all inboxes, column 1, row 6. Column 1, row 5.
It's
column
very
2,
weird the way it does this. I do not like this.
And I think you have to be at the top of the column for it to tell you actually what that column is.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and mess with this, but if you want to, it's under the view menu. So I'm going to go back and turn it back
menu
to
bar,
the way that I like.
Edit view, cut, sort by, filter, check mark, use column.
All right, let's get back.
All inboxes. Omar El Shame, event update, Ritu Parnisar, Robert Westphal, Dr.
Okay,
VSK,
Mary
John
has
Tanner.
joined the meeting.
So there, like I said, it's personal preference on how you like to have your messages, but I prefer just having the synopsis read to me. It gives me enough information that I can decide whether I want to delete the message, reply to it, leave it there for later. Like I have some messages, as you heard, as I went through my message list, which are basically Zoom meetings and WebEx and invitations for Apple and some other people. It's just how I prefer to do it. You don't have to do everything the same way I do, but if you want to read messages, there is 2 ways by default. Again, if you collapse that vertical splitter, the first way that I'm going to show you right now does not work because you don't have a content area. To me, this is the simplest and easiest way.
Vertical messages, in messages.
So
Dr.
you want to
John
make
Panner.
sure you're interacted with the message table and you use VOJ, Control Option J.
This is a test. This is a test. Take care. John D. Panarese Director Mac for the Blind Tell 631.
So it will just read to you the whole message if you just allow it to do so, but you then can
New
navigate.
law. John D. Pep, director. Mac for the tell. Mac director. John D. Panery. John D. Panery. John. Mac for website. Signature
So
detected.
you can go through it as in any, using your standard text navigation. You can go through the message or just let it read the whole thing. And then when you're done,
In messages table. John Panery.
you just VOJ back to your message table and move on to the next message, or you can hit the delete key. If you have the full size keyboard, the forward delete. If you have a laptop keyboard, you just hit the backspace delete key, and that will remove your message and send it to the trash. So VOJ will jump you back and forth between the message table and the content. Obviously, the old school, old fashioned way, as you can do in Windows, is simply hit enter.
Test all inboxes window.
And it opens up, the message. And again, I stopped it, but it will start reading the whole message to you. And then you can interact.
This is a test. In text. This is new line. Take care.
And you can read it by
Take care. D signet D space N.
So you can read it in any way you want with the standard text navigation. But the thing you got to remember is when you're done, you got to do a Command W to close the window.
Close all inboxes.
To get back to your message table. It's not like Windows Outlook and such where you can hit escape. Escape is not going to close that window. You got to do Command W. Remember, you're in Mac world. Windows goes out the window. So Command W closes the window and you end up back in your message table. Now, I thought I must have deleted them earlier. But the one other thing I wanted to talk about was conversation threading. I'm sure everybody who's used Apple Mail and iOS is familiar with the way that Apple Mail by default will kind of consolidate messages that have the same subject. So you'll hear VoiceOver say 2-message conversation, 3-message conversation. Now, the easy way this works in Apple Mail on the Mac, the way I do it, is when I'm on a conversation thread, I hit the right arrow to expand it. And then I just use the regular down arrow by itself. And I will go through the individual messages in chronological order and see the thread progression, of that conversation. So when I'm done, I simply hit the left arrow to collapse it. And then I can hit delete to get rid of the entire thread at one time. Or I can individually delete the messages with the delete key when I'm in the conversation thread. So right arrow to expand, up and down arrow to go up and down the individual messages, and then left arrow will collapse. Very easy way to handle conversation threading. If you do not like conversation threading, as I've run into a few clients that don't, you can go to the view menu and you can uncheck where it says group by conversation. If you uncheck group by conversation, it's old school. The messages just get listed the way they come into your inbox. I like the threading, particularly if you frequent a lot of public email lists. So I'm on, the Mac Visionaries, the iPhone list, my Mac for the Blind list, the iDevices list, etc. I'm probably on at least a dozen, Apple related and a few non-Apple related, like the Duxbury list and stuff like that.
I won't take it personal that you didn't mention mine. But one thing I will mention that when you're going through your message and threading view, by default, the newest message will be on top. I don't like mine like that. So in the view menu, you can go by sort ascending or descending, whatever you choose.
Yeah, actually, I
that and because I like mine
because I switched it. Yeah, that's why mine is different. But by default, it's the newest. I don't know why they do it that way. I'd rather have the oldest. So you go through the progression, the original message, and then you can see who's followed up. So you can kind of get the idea. Now you have the idea of how to read messages. So let's go quickly through some basic keyboard commands, because with a screen reader, whether it's VoiceOver, JAWS, NVDA, etc., the keys to the kingdom are going to be the keyboard commands. So just like in Outlook, you have your basic keyboard commands to deal or manage your messages. So for example, Command R will respond to a message. And when you do Command R,
reply, test window,
it puts you right into the body of the message, because the subject is going to have the original subject and it's going to go back to the original sender. If you do Command Shift and the letter R, that's in instances where it is a group message and it goes back to everybody in the group. So the original sender and everybody else who received that message is now going to get your reply. So be careful with that, whether you want to do Command R or Command Shift and the letter R. Let me just close this.
Close all inboxes.
Command Shift F.
Forward. FWD. Test window.
Will put you into forwarding a message. So you then are responsible for filling out the to field, because you obviously have to indicate to whom you're going to forward the message. The subject field will say FWD and whatever the original subject was. And then obviously you can go to the body of the message and fill in, if you want to add any specific information about the forward or just leave it as it is, that's perfectly fine. So that's entirely your call. Now I'm going to close this.
All inboxes.
So, and then you have Command N for a brand new
message window.
So you end up starting off in the to field. So I'm just going to
J and Panaris at I.
So I'm just going to send myself a message. Now you can use the VO arrows or you can tab through the fields. I'm just going to hit tab.
Selection replaced. To add CC, BCC, edit tag, BCC, subject, edit.
So I have the CC and BCC fields showing. That's just my preference. By default, I believe with Apple Mail, you only have the CC field, but I like the BCC, particularly when I'm sending out group messages in which I don't want everybody seeing each other's email addresses, because again, folks, that is called etiquette, proper etiquette. When you send out chain messages, be aware that when you forward chain messages, you are sending the world everybody else's email addresses. So if you want to do forwards the proper way, erase the header fields and then forward it to people and BCC if it's multiple people involved in the forward. You don't want to send out email. This is how junk mail collectors get people's email addresses, because of that lack of etiquette. So I'm in the subject field. So I'm just going to test
2
number 2, and I'm going to tab past
John Panaris, John at Mac4 Headline.
So I have, what happens is you get a pop-up menu. If you have multiple accounts, you can pick a different account if you want to send to from a different mail account of yours. By default, I think it goes back to whoever sent it to you if you're replying. And what was the last email that was sent to you is when you're doing a compose as far as what address it picks. But I think you can set a default in mail preferences if you prefer. So then
MFTB signature.
There's a signature pop-up if you have multiple signatures, and we'll talk about mail signatures briefly in a little bit. I just have a standard I call it MF Mac for the blind, MFTB. So I'm going to tab
Take care
into the body of the message. So I can just
this is another test period.
So this is another test. So when you want to send, here's the little tricky one. It is not Command S or anything similar to that. I make the joke that Apple ran out of letters in the word send. So it's actually Command Shift and the letter D. I like to tell people delivering the mail. So Command Shift D.
Send all inboxes.
There you go. Message gets sent out. So Command.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because when people come from Windows, like I did, it's Alt S, which is in the same place as Command. So the Command Shift D is a quite an interesting command. And for those who don't know, it will work if you use it on a Bluetooth keyboard on the iPad and iPhone also.
Yes, all of these keyboard commands actually work on if you have a keyboard with the iPhone and the iPad. Good point, because that's something Apple has sort of sneakily integrated over the last few years with Bluetooth keyboards. If you're a Mac user, you have a big advantage because you know all of these keyboard commands, and they're all starting to be, you're starting to see them pop up in the iOS world, which I think is a great thing because it's good for me and it's also great for teaching clients. So that's definitely true. So that's how you can manage your mail. So let's talk about mailboxes. Now, this may be different for some of you. I don't know what really affects this or not, but technically Shift Tab and Tab will get you back and forth between the mailbox table and the message list for the chosen mailbox. But for me, for some reason, I got to be a little fiddly.
Verdict warning button. Mailboxes table.
So I had to Shift Tab twice and then Tab to get into the mailbox table. Hopefully for most of you guys, you can just Shift Tab and it'll take you to the mailbox table. But for some reason, I don't know why it is. It's just different for me. But the mailbox table, as I said, you start off on dealing with your unified inbox. I'm going to kind of go through mine, but
For me, I gotta push it twice also because that stupid vertical scroll bar
yeah,
gets
I
in the
think
way.
I think everybody might have to do that now in Monterey and Big Sur, whether you have that vertical splitter thingy. So you may have to Shift Tab twice, and like I just did, and Tab to get back to the mailbox list. Now, remember, as I said, at the top of the mailbox list is going to be all your unified mailboxes. So in my case,
VIPs, all inboxes, VIPs, all sent, all junk, all trash, one unread, collapsed.
So it's all my unified stuff. And then as I go down, it's going to be different accounts and stuff. Now, for you guys, it's going to vary. It really is. There is no, I mean, I'm sure there is a rhyme or reason. So let me not say that, but there's probably a reason why your mailboxes are laid out in specific ways. Mine is a mess. I don't understand quite why.
All drafts flagged. Drafts, iCloud, smart mailboxes, today, left on my Mac, app import, recovered messages, recovered nest, Spartalk 1967, Google, 7 unread, Yahoo, add button, collapsed.
So these are my other accounts. And you notice it says collapsed, and some of them are expanded to show all the individual mailboxes. So when you expand with VO /
expanding, Yahoo.
So this is my Yahoo account.
Row 26, expand, inbox, drafts, send.
So these are the specific mailboxes for Yahoo. So each account will have its own individual mailboxes. So if you want to see, just the inbox for a specific account, or, the sent items or trash, if you're looking for trash that's only, it's come, it was trashed from a specific account, you can go to that mailbox and simply tab into the message table if you wanted to do that. The other neat thing that you can do with mailboxes is what's called the favorites bar. And the favorites bar is a quick way so that you can use keyboard commands to quickly access those mailboxes. So by default, your unified inbox, your unified sent, your unified drafts, your unified trash will be like command 2, command 3, command 4. Remember how I said earlier, command 1 takes you to your unified inbox? Well, command 2, command 3, command 4, command 5 will take you to those other unified mailboxes. But by the power of VoiceOver, you can also add your own mailboxes, should you choose to do so, to the favorites bar. So if I wanted to
drafts, send, inbox.
If I, for whatever stupid reason, I wanted to do my Yahoo inbox and I wanted to add it to the favorites bar, once I'm on the inbox, I do a VO Shift M.
Menu.
And I go down.
New mailbox.
So there's your new mailbox if you wanted to create a new mailbox. But below that,
add to favorites,
is the add to favorites. This is new, I believe, in Big Sur and Monterey. If you're running something older than that, you probably are not going to see that. But add to favorites, if I hit VO space, would put my Yahoo inbox as part of my favorites bar. And on a further note, if you wanted to, you could go into your favorites bar, interact with it, and you could use the VO drag and drop commands if you wanted to rearrange the order, because, by default, it's going to drop it for the last available opening when you do the add to favorites. So like for me, it would be, I believe, command 7 or command 8. But if I wanted to go in there, I could drag and drop and rearrange the order of the mailboxes if I had a special way in mind of doing that.
Inbox. Cell. Inbox.
So I'm just going to jump up.
Recovered messages. Recovered messages. All inboxes. Warning button. 7.
So I just jumped back up to my my all inboxes. Now in mail, just as a side note, Command Option up arrow, Command Option down arrow takes you to the top or the bottom of lists. It is not like in Finder where you can do Option up and Option down arrow. In mail, for some reason, it's Command Option up arrow, Command Option down arrow. So now I'm back on my unified inbox, and I'm going to
vertical scroll messages table.
Tab over to my message table.
Barbara Kirk, John Panner.
So I'm going to just do Command Option up arrow.
Omar El Shami, event update.
So that's the top of my inbox. And if I do Command Option down arrow.
London Private Client Network.
I don't know what the hell that is. That's spam, I guess. That's at the bottom of my inbox. So Command Option up, Command Option down arrow will do that also in the mailbox table. That will do the same thing. So just in case you need to get around, and if you need to highlight messages, you can do, if you wanted to like highlight everything from a message all the way to the top or the bottom, you can include the shift. So Shift Command Option up arrow, Command Option down arrow will highlight everything from that message all the way to the top or the bottom. You can also just hold down the Shift key and use the up or down arrows if you just wanted to, highlight like a bunch of messages in a row to delete or whatever. So just to kind of some other additional keyboard commands for your consideration. Okay, so mail attachments. I'm going to show you the quick and easy, dirty way to just send an attachment to somebody. I'm just going to pick a random file here. So let's say I wanted to send this particular file. This is just the ACSP training guide for those of you who are curious. So let's say I wanted to email this to somebody. The easiest way to do that is just do Command C to copy it, just like you would normally copy a file in Finder.
Copy 9780137.
So I'm going to go back to mail.
Mail 6 new mail.
And what I would do is if I wanted to send this to myself.
New message. New message.
So I'm just going to do
J Panaris J.
I'm just going to go to sub.
Selection replaced to FCC subject edit text.
I'm just going to
T
attachment.
John MFTB. Take care.
And when you're in the body of the message, you simply do a Command V.
Paste.
And
new line 9780137696550 attached image.
That's the file now attached to the mail message. So I could type a message to myself. And then when I'm ready,
send in dialog alert cancel button.
It's probably going to tell me the messages to
don't ask again for cancel, but don't iCloud download alert image. Would you like to send this?
Oh, because it's such a big attachment, it's giving me the option to do a mail drop to myself. I'll just do
this attachment. Use mail drop default, but attach image.
There we go. So
alert from mail.
All inboxes.
Shush. There we go. Message was sent. So that's how the quick and
London
easy
private
way.
client networking.
Shush. Now you also could do it this way too. I'm going to go back
Finder
to Finder. If you just don't want to do a Command C, another way you can do it is if you VO Shift M.
Menu 9780.
And you go down to
open and new paste item. Move to rename, compress, duplicate, slideshow, quick look, copy, share, submenu.
The share, and you open the share with the VO right arrow.
Share, submenu, mail.
You have the mail option there too. So you could VO space on mail. It would open up a blank mail message, already attached the file for you. You would just fill in the to field and the subject field and write whatever you want to write. So I'm just going to hit escape.
97801.
Okay, so that's and you also
mail 6 new
if you really want to do it the old school way, you can start a mail message, do the to field, the subject, and then from the file menu.
Menu bar, Apple, mail, file, new message, new viewer, open mess, close, save as, import from, quick look at, import, export as, print, ellipsis.
Oh, it's not going to have the attachment because I didn't do a message, a new mail message, but you would also find the save, add attachment.
Command.
So let me do that.
New message, J Panaris, at iCloud, select to, BCC, subject, edit text, T, A, E.
So if I wanted to
Actions.
attach
Jump.
a
Take
file
care.
to this particular message,
Menu bar. Apple. Map. Edit. File. New message. New viewer. Close. Save command. Attach files. Ellipsis. Command
there's
shift.
the attach
A.
file. So if I wanted to attach a file, I could VO space and it would open up the dialog for me to go find a file the long way, which, is the open or save dialog type of thing that you find in Apple. I don't like that way. I like the first two ways that I showed you. Very quick, very easy. Just find the file in Finder, attach it.
Take care.
And you're good to go. So I'm just going to close this.
Closed.
If you need to, you can always do a message in progress. You can put it in, you can save it as a draft if you want to go back to it later. So if you start writing a very lengthy message and you decide, hey, I don't have time for this, I'll do it later, you can just close it out and save it to your drafts, and it will be in your drafts folder. Now, opening or saving an attachment, again, you can use the file menu just as you had the attach files. There is also a save attachments option in the file menu. By default, attachments are saved in downloads unless you have picked an alternate folder for that to be done. The other quick and easy way to do that is to jump into the message content, either with VOJ or hitting the enter key to open the message, navigate down to the attachment. Now, one or two things you can do, depending, sometimes PDFs are a little wacky, but for the most part, if you VO Shift M for the context menu on an attachment, it will then give you a menu that will have open with, save attachment to downloads folder, and some other options. So you can pick what you want to do from that context menu. What I mean by wonky with PDFs is sometimes you have to, the VO Shift M doesn't work. You have to actually VO space on the PDF. Now, sometimes if you VO space on the PDF, you'll pop that menu that gives you open with, save to downloads folder. But one of the other weird things that has been happening to me with certain PDFs is when I VO space on it, it actually opens the PDF in the preview application. So just be aware that that can happen. If that happens, you can save it in preview, just do Command S and save it. Or you can just close it out if you're not really looking to save, the file in the first place. But that's the easy ways to deal with your mail attachments once you get them. Again, some people like the old school dialog box and, going through the save attachments and, finding the place you want to save it. That's fine. I mean, if that's what works for you, then that's the way you do it. But I just prefer the easy way of just finding the attachment and then doing the VO Shift M to get the choice, because there is a save to downloads folder right in that in that context menu. So it makes life a lot easier for me because I like to put everything in the downloads folder and then move it from there if I need to do so or want to do so. All right, so that's mail attachments. Now, I kind of touched before on creating mailboxes. You do that from the mailbox table with the VO Shift M. There's the new mailbox button. It will ask you to name the mailbox. And then in that same dialog, if you have multiple accounts, you'll also be asked to, associate the new mailbox with a specific account. Now, the weird thing, though, is once you have that mailbox created, even if you have associated it with a specific account, it actually will most likely show up way down your mailbox list towards the bottom. So in other words, you're not necessarily going to see it listed in your account itself that you've, tied it to. I do not know why, but for example, I have some mailboxes that I've created for iCloud and for Mac for the Blind, and they are at the bottom of my mailbox table. So I got to go all the way down to find them. I don't know why. I think they're considered to be on my Mac, as I think what happens to them, regardless of what account I assign them to. At least that's my assumption. But that's how you would create mailboxes. You can remove mailboxes and add to favorites, as I demonstrated earlier. Now, mail preferences, just like with any application, Command comma is the keyboard shortcut. And of course, you can just go to the menu bar.
Menu bar, Apple, Mail, File, Mail.
Under the Mail menu.
Mail, about Mail, Preferences, ellipsis,
Second
Command.
option down, your VO space.
Preferences, Accounts, Window.
So there is a toolbar.
Accounts, Zoom, Minimize, Account, Toolbar.
You interact with.
In Toolbar.
And then you
Channel,
have
General button. General button.
General.
Accounts, selected, Junk Mail button.
Junk Mail. Now, junk mail is not turned on by default in Apple Mail. If you want to turn on the junk mail filter, you have to go do this in mail preferences. And, you can leave it at its defaults, or you can play with the junk mail options. It's entirely up to you. I just leave the defaults as they stand, and it works well enough for me. Then you get a junk mail folder. And I will tell you, as a piece of advice, if you do use junk mail and you have multiple accounts, make it a point to jump into junk mail, your all junk mail mailbox once in a while, and just go through it carefully, because until Apple Mail learns your habits, sometimes you will find things that should not be in your junk mailbox. One of the things, for example, that happens to people who purchase my audio tutorials, or sometimes when I send out the Zoom links to them, they end up in junk mail. So it's a good idea to go in your junk mail folder and kind of poke around in there, and just, via Command Shift J on a junk mail will send it to your unified inbox, send it back to your unified inbox. So just keep that in mind in case you run into that. So the other
fonts and colors button, viewing button, composing button, signatures button.
So you have all your different options here in Mail. If you want to look at composing, you can select what format you want to send it in, RTF or plain text. There's different options under the viewing. You can set headers, you can set things like that. I wanted to show you signatures.
Signature selected.
So I'm going to stop interacting with the toolbar.
Out of toolbar. Signatures table. Row 1 of 7.
So the way signatures works is there's a table that has your accounts. When you select a specific account.
It's Spartalk196, Google, Yahoo, TVI19AIM.com, Dogstar, Mac4theblind.com, at AOL, Mac for the Blind.
So I'm going to look at Mac for the Blind. And then if you keep going.
Out of vertical splitter names table.
You have your signature names. It's the list of as many signatures as you created for that account. If you keep going.
Vertical splitter, take care.
Then it's going to have the text of the signature that is selected. And then if you keep going.
Add button.
There's the add button for a new signature. And then you also have
remove button.
A remove.
Always match my default message font. Unchecked checkbox. Helvetica 12. Choose signature. MFTB. Choose signature.
And then at the very end, you can choose a default signature for the specific account. Now, there is at the top of the list an all signatures that you could technically create that would be available to you in all your accounts. To my knowledge, it's very difficult to do this with VoiceOver. It's much easier to add signatures to the individual accounts. You can drag and drop technically to the all signatures, but good luck. Unless it's changed in Monterey and Big Sur, I never had any success trying to do the all signatures. Nor that
the way that I do it is I'll create, like I have multiple accounts like you. I think I got 5 or 6 accounts, whatever. Anyways, there's a couple of them that I like to have the same signature on, like my Stir It Up email address or my iCloud email address. When I'm in multiple groups, I like to post my YouTube links and whatever the case may be. The way that I do it is I create it in the default account where I want it originally. But if I want to copy it to another account, all I got to do, and you're using the drag and drop term, but as we know, that has been spotty since Mountain Lion with the command, comma, and period to drag and drop. So the best way to do it is to make sure your VO cursor is on the, and this is it when you're in all signatures. Make sure the VO cursor is on the signature that you want to drag. You turn cursor tracking off. Then you do the mouse down command, which is VO command shift in the space bar. Then you stop interacting with the all signatures table, go back to the accounts table, go to the account where you want it, and then you do the voice or the mouse up command, which is the exact same VO command shift space bar. Once you do that, you turn cursor tracking back on. You can go to that account to confirm that it's there. 9 times out of 10, it will work because I've done it. So that's the way that I do it. If there's another way to do it, then somebody please tell me. But that's the way that I found the easiest to have multiple signatures. And that also makes it so you don't have to create the exact same signature twice on another account. You can just drag it to that account and lift it up. And the nice thing about it is, say John wanted to change his take care signature, he would just go to all signatures and change it there, and whatever account it's on, it'll change it in that instance also.
Ah, there you go. And just for as a side note, the way you turn off and turn on cursor tracking is VO Shift F3. VO Shift F function key 3.
Sorry, I forget that sometimes. I assume everybody knows.
I just wanted to make sure because I know you're probably going to ask that at the end of the session. How do you turn off or turn on cursor tracking? So it's VO Shift F3. So once you have accounts created, it's a lot of fun. You can create as many signatures, I should say, for accounts. You can mess around with that all you want. I have plenty of different signatures that I use. Some of them are joke signatures that I use for non-business email. Some of them are obviously my standard account that everybody sees, and some people complain about that it's too long. But that's what the information I want to have in my signature. So you can do whatever you want with that. There are some third-party apps out there that will do random signatures. Sometimes it's like famous quotes. Sometimes it's a joke of the day. Have fun with the signatures. That's really my point. Because I've a lot of people have asked me privately about creating signatures. So that's why I wanted to make sure I spent a little bit of time going over that with people, just so you know how to do it. And again, you want to make sure you look at mail preferences. You know, as I say to my clients, when you're working with an app, you really want to learn the ins and outs of the app. And it's not something that happens overnight. So, you know, another piece of advice is if you don't get it in a day, don't throw it out the window because it's not accessible. It's a pain in the neck. I want another mail client. Get me Thunderbird, get me Outlook, get me this, get me that. You know, you got to spend time, you know, working with the application and getting it down to a science. You know, people like for me and Cliff, we know these things and people say, well, how did you get so good at this stuff? How did you? It didn't happen overnight. We just didn't roll out of bed one morning and say, oh, I can do everything in Apple Mail. You know, you have to work, you have to practice at it. You just kind of poke around. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get lost in the application. You know, you just find your way through using all the different things that we went over. And then once, you know, work on one area first, just work on composing and sending emails, then replying, and then mailboxes. And you kind of systematically go through the app, go into preferences, poke around in there a little bit, see if there's anything that you might want to change. And that's good, you know, and then learn the keyboard commands because you'll notice in mail, we have
menu bar, Apple, mail, file, edit, view, mailbox, message, format, window.
So you have, you know, the big ones,
message,
mailbox, and the mailbox menus. There's plenty of things under those particular menu items. So, you know, you want to explore. It's going to be a little different for each person, depending on how many different accounts you have. The one thing, too, I want to make sure I mention is
mailbox.
Make sure you go and you dump your trash out once in a while, or you set the option in preferences for, you know, having trash emptied every 30 days or whatever it is, because you can, just like on Finder, you can fill up your trash mailboxes and, you know, you don't want to have that stuff stacked up, you know, forever, you know, so it's a good idea. There is a keyboard command, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but if you look at the mailbox menu, there is a keyboard command you can use that automatically will empty the trash. I think you'll get a a dialogue that will say, are you sure you want to blah, blah, blah.
Command Shift Delete or backspace, whatever you
Yes,
choose to
Command
call it.
Yeah, and that will kind of
And
ask.
there's another way to do it without it asking you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want you telling me that you deleted your trash and it was my fault and it didn't ask you. So I'm going to
Yeah,
leave that one
because
alone.
there are, even in Finder, there's a way to bypass trash. And I get asked this once in a while. There is a command to bypass the trash. I don't teach people that because it does exactly what I said. It bypasses the trash. If you do that, you cannot get it back. Simple as that. Remember that Command Z can rescue you as, undoing the last thing. But if you send something and bypass the trash, even Command Z will not get it back because it's gone. So that's why sometimes people ask me why I don't teach that command, because it just can be very dangerous for users, because, you don't want to get rid of something and then regret that you did it or have done it by accident. And again, Command W closes your preference windows, not escape. So Command W is your friend, and obviously Command Q will quit mail. Mail is in the dock. Mail is in the applications folder, or you can do a spotlight search with Command space and type mail, and it should be the first hit that comes up if you want to get to mail. So there is your mail lesson, pretty much covering. I mean, I know there's mail rules. People are going to end up inevitably asking me about mail rules. There is a rules thing you can do, and there's lots of cool stuff you can do with mail rules. You can have smart mailboxes where certain mail messages get put into it. You can have certain senders go into specific mailboxes. Rules, though, are a little bit above my knowledge. I guess I don't really use them. Anyway, that is the mail app in all its glory. I was talking about rules. So like I said, rules are a little bit above what I typically do.
Oh, and I was about to chime in. They're actually pretty easy. I mean, unless you're going to make your Mac notify you of mail going into a certain inbox, I would recommend just going on the website and doing it, because any rule you set on the Mac is not going to carry over to your iPad or your Mac. So
Right.
if you want to hear a sound when you get mail from Mac for the Blind, or you want to hear a sound when you get something from Google Groups, then that's fine. But if you wanted to go into a certain mailbox, I'd do that on the website so it syncs across devices.
Right. So there are mail. Like I said, if people have questions about rules, I can poke around in there and I can kind of figure it out for you just by sort of trial and error. But I don't generally use mail rules on a regular basis. I did early on just because, it was there. But as I've gotten sort of through the years, I don't find it necessary. But again, if people have questions, shoot me an email off, afterwards. I think somebody just asked before, just to answer their questions about signatures. Yes, remember before when I was tabbing, if you have multiple signatures, there will be a drop-up down menu that will give you the ability to pick a signature based on the outgoing account from which you're sending the mail. So in other words, for Mac for the Blind, I only have one signature because it's the business. But for my personal iCloud account, I have multiple signatures. I can do the Mac for the Blind business signature, but if it's for a non-business contact, I have what I call my iCloud standard, which just basically says, take care, John Panarese, jpanarese at iCloud.com. So you'll get the drop-down menu and you just pick what signature you want. It's the same thing with the outgoing account pop-up menu. If you have multiple accounts and you don't want, so let's say, for example, I was sending an email to somebody, and if for some reason it would pick my John at Mac for the Blind account, which is my default account, I could pick something else. I could use my Gmail. I could use my iCloud. I could use my AOL, whatever it is I want to send it from. I can choose that from the drop-down menu as well. So you just like any pop-up menu, VO space to activate it, VO down arrow or VO up arrow until you get to the thing you want and VO space to select it. And then you're good to go. All right, so we are at Q&A. So if you have any further questions, fire away.
I know it's better to do rules on the website, but if you have to organize mail after the fact because you didn't get your rules right or whatever, you just need to organize your mail. Is there a quick way to move things? Because what bothers me is that, for one thing, I can only select contiguous messages, or at least so far, that's what I've been finding out. And then I have to go all the way down to move, or, open the menu and then go up to move and then go through that whole submenu. Seems like there should be a quicker way
Well,
to
VO,
do that, which is the only thing I like better about Windows Mail.
well, VO command enter is for will work with
Oh,
non-contiguous
it will?
selection, just like it does in Finder and in the music app. So that's one thing. Yet there used to be, and I don't know if it got broken, but if you have like the favorites bar and you have assigned specific mailboxes to the favorites bar, it used to be that you could do like command option 2 or command option 5 if you wanted to move selected messages directly to a mailbox.
It's command option, or not command, it's command control in the mailbox where you want to move it to.
Okay, so it still works though.
Yes, it does.
So
And
command
the other thing you
control.
can do if you don't have a mailbox in favorites is you can VO Shift M. The first option is going to be move. You hit the right arrow and then hit the first letter of the mailbox you want to move it to. When you hear your choice, you just hit enter and it's moved.
Right. Right. And you could do that for selected messages too. So if you do non-contiguous or contiguous selection, you just immediately do a VO Shift M and then select move, and then the mailbox you want to move all those messages to simultaneously.
Why would your emails disappear from your inbox if you're not deleting them? Is there some specific way that is set up from the email client itself, like if it's a Roadrunner or if it's a Gmail? I'm just noting, like, my Roadrunner emails, they just drop off on my Mac at a certain point. Even if I don't delete them, they disappear.
Are you accessing the mail from an iOS device?
Yes, from my well, I mean, I access them from, depending on where I am, but I have an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac computer. So
I'm wondering if it's somehow being grabbed by the other device off the server and it's just disappearing from the Mac, but it's still on the iOS device.
I don't know, but
It's,
I've been
it's-
trying
I
to.
mean, what happens sometimes is when you create mail accounts on different devices, they're not necessarily synced in the sense that you might have IMAP going on your Mac. You may have POP on another device.
Okay.
So it's possible that it's grabbing the mail from the server and downloading it directly to your device. And in this way, when you go back to the Mac, your Mac might be using IMAP and it's not seeing that message anymore because it's been removed from the server. I mean, I'm just giving you an educated guess. I don't know for sure if that's what's happening, but just from a technical standpoint, it sounds, quote unquote, sounds like that.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's the answer because I'm not a truly a network aficionado, but that's what, like I said, from an educated standpoint, that's what it sounds like.
Can I remove a favorite mailbox? For instance, I have one where a student is going to graduate this year, and obviously I won't need their information anymore.
Yeah, I think when you're on the mailbox in the favorites, if you VO Shift M, I think there is a delete or remove.
Oh, okay. I'll try that. I don't think I have tried that, but I will go do that. Thanks.
Remember, for those of you interested, there is you can still get the audio tutorials for a discount. I think it's Spring Course 2022 or something like that is the code. It's in the email that I sent out to you guys. So if you want those, just feel free to use the coupon So I thank you very much for attending this course. I appreciate it. And I hope that everybody got something out of it. I know, like I said, it was a repeat. But as I said, I got enough requests from people to do it again. So there you have it.
Remember, for all Mac, iOS, and any kind of Apple training, visit macfortheblind.com. John Panarese has some free courses and some reasonable paid courses. You won't be disappointed. See you next time.